Greetings, beekeepers, and welcome to my bee yard. This is the bee yard that sits about 50 feet off my front porch. It's the bee yard where I can raise queens and just spend a lot of time with my bees. At the moment there are no bees in residence here, but for this class we will be introducing bees into this end box, the box right over here. Let's take a look inside the box. All right, let me give you a quick tour of what's going to be inside this box. I've got a bottom board down there. This one's a screen bottom board. It's closed though, so I don't get a draft from the bottom. I have 5 frames here that were all ones that are left from last year. I made them last year. I date all my frames so I know when they're going in. And I'm going to then add 5 more frames of foundation. And I haven't got them dated yet, but I have the pen in my hand and I will be dating them so I'll know these are 2020 frames. Now this gives me a total of 20 frames. There we go. So they are from 4 of 2020. That's what it says. April of 2020. Now I'm putting 10 frames in here. If I'm going to draw out foundation into comb, I put in 10. By having them cuddled up real nice, the bees will tend to draw out much nicer foundation. Here's what I'd like it to look like. When I get all 10 frames drawn out, I'll take one out, and I'll only have 9. When I have 9 in there, it gives me a lot more room to work. On top, I'm going to put an inner cover. My inner cover has slats on it already. That makes it so that I can put my feed jar on top eventually and feed them through the center hole. On top of that goes my telescoping cover. And my videographer is here now. Hi, videographer.
Hello.
All right, well, that's what the hive looks like. That's how it's going to be. Thanks. Neither of these boxes has any bees in them. The one on the left, this one right here, has a few frames that are still kind of sticky. And the bees from the neighborhood, there's another apiary about 1,000 yards away from here. The bees from the other apiary are checking it out. I think they found something really good here. Now the way you can tell that these are just robbers coming in and out and there's nobody living in there is because you see no pollen on their legs. There we go. There's one of the robbers. Just sitting there thinking about a nice load of honey they can help themselves to in here and take it home. So, but nobody living in this box, but there are robbers coming in and out. Well, here are the 3 kinds of queen cages that you're most likely to see. Benton, California Mini, and the Easy Beezy. They all serve the same purpose. They keep the queen nice and safe. Give her the extra protection when she's inside the package here. The package that you'll receive is probably going to be wood. There are a few plastic ones that are around, but pretty much people still use wood. Inside there is going to be your bees that you bought by the pound. 3-pound package gives you about 10 or 12,000 bees. There will be a can. That can is set up in there for food, so they have something to eat for the trip. And then hanging next to the can on the inside will be the queen in her special cage. The Benton cage, invented 120 years ago by Frank Benton, is still probably the best of the cages. It's a 3-hole cage. There are 3 holes drilled in it. That's the chamber that the queen rides in. Generally, you'll find a hole drilled in each end, and each end will have a cork in it. One of the holes will be filled with sugar candy, the food for the trip. The queen will ride in the other 2 holes, and sometimes she will have attendant bees that will be traveling with her. When you put it inside the box, you pull the one cork out, and then you hang it in the hive. You hang it in the hive so that the worker bees can then eat away the candy and release the queen. The California Mini is a mini. Serves a purpose about the same, but generally there's no candy. There's only a cork in the one hole on the one end. That means that when you pull that cork out, the queen is free to leave unless you put something else in there. Most often doing what we call a slow release, you'll pull the cork out, and we often use marshmallows. You stuff a marshmallow into the hole. The worker bees will be happy to eat the marshmallow out and release the queen. Easy Beezy is very much the same. It has only one opening, and that opening is sometimes filled with candy, sometimes not, but it will often travel with a cap on top of it so that there's no chance that anybody could eat their way in or out. So you'll find one of those 3, the Benton, the California Mini, or the Easy Beezy, inside your package. Here you see the view looking down on top of the open brood chamber. 10 frames. You can see that they're dated. You can probably also notice that the 5 in the center are darker. Those are ones that came off of hives from last year. The lighter colored ones on the outside are only foundation. There's a frame that's drawn out from last year. And there's the foundation, the new foundation for this year. Generally, I will put old frames, if I have them, in the center, newer frames to the outside. The bees like to start working in the middle, and they'll work out. This makes it so that they will have cells already waiting for the queen to lay in. The worker bees go to work cleaning up the cells, the queen goes into business laying. They can then later build on the outer frames, drawing out the foundation. Now the question comes, how do you hang the cage inside the hive? Well, you want to hang the queen cage so it's high up. You want it where it's going to be warm. The bees will keep her warm up here. If she drops at the bottom, the bees will rise to the top. She'll stay at the bottom and be chilled. You don't want a chilled queen. Now, how are you going to hang it from the top? Well, some of the cages have a little metal strip. It allows you to bend that metal strip up over the top, and you could use a thumbtack to hold it in place. It's also possible that you could break out your duct tape and tape it up on the top. It's also possible that you could use a big rubber band, put it all the way around the frame, and hold it in place. If you have the luxury of having drawn comb, you can also just embed it in the comb. So you've got comb on both sides. Let's assume we got the Benton cage here. All I need to do is to, after I've pulled the cork on the candy end, and often, by the way, we will take a little nail or something and start helping the bees move that candy out of the way, just to give them a head start. So you take the cage and put it in, and then squeeze it on the other frame. Now if you do that, you can probably look at it and go, there's so much space there, I won't get all 10 frames in. That's okay, put 9 in. Because you're going to go back in there in just a few days and you're going to take that cage out. And then you can put the 10th frame back in. Now when you put the queen in there, number one, you want to make sure that the screen is available to the workers, because they're going to continue to feed her through that screen until they release her. Also, when you put the queen cage in, if she's all by herself, it doesn't matter how you orient it. But if she has attendant bees in there, there is a danger to having it point down, because those attendant bees will die. They just die of old age eventually, and they can get stuck and make it so the queen cannot be easily released. So I always just make a habit of putting the queen cages in either horizontal or even slightly tilted up, just because I want to make sure that the queen doesn't get stuck inside. Once you hang the queen, you add the bees, you put the top on, come back in 3 days. About 3 days is how long it generally takes them to release the queen. That's how it works.